Thank you so much for joining me at Cultivating Equanimity with Money. And I want to get started with a real brief introduction about what equanimity with money is. And I'll probably repeat some of these themes. So equanimity with money is a kind of inner balance, and it certainly provides resilience. But the first feeling of equanimity is simply a form of calm and peace, no matter what's happening with money. And we develop that when we realize that our identity is not tied to our money. And in this culture, our identity is very, very much tied to our money. And I don't like that. And I don't think it's necessary, no matter how much money we have or how little money we have. We are not our money. So the other thing I want to make sure to say is that this is not a false spiritual bypass. That what this kind of a posture allows us to do when we cultivate resilience, it does give us resilience because we're allowing all of our feelings, not because we're shoving them down so that we can become these, spiritual people. It's like we already are spiritual people. It's not caring. Equanimity is not caring what happens to us financially. It's not caring about money flow in the world and how inequitable it is. And we need to say that. I care very much about those things. I believe the people who are present in this room with me right now care very much about those things. It's allowing the feelings from a place that is not the feelings. And we're going to talk more about that. In essence, it's finding a place in you that is something bigger, that is bigger than those feelings. I do not want to evangelize my spiritual perspective. I want to share that having a spiritual perspective will be really useful in cultivating equanimity with money. So if we're not our money and our identity is not tied up with our money, what are we? And that is something I want to explore with the coachees in this session. And I also want to encourage you, if you're listening to this recording, to think, what is it that I'm part of that's much bigger than money? For me, that's a spiritual reality. That's a divine or a sacred reality. For someone else, it might be something secular. That is, we're all part of a common humanity, or we're part of the earth community, the world community. There might be something like that we're part of that's bigger. So for me, it's remembering that I am not that. And that's a phrase that I use a lot. I am not that. I'm not my fear. I'm not how much money I have. I'm not the things I own, for example. I want to move into coaching. And the first person I want to coach now is Laura. So you want so that your emotional state is not so dependent on how much money you have.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So do you have any practice of observing your own emotions?
Oh, yes, meditation. You can watch
Yeah,
them go by. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay. Did you use that practice when you wanted the equanimity, the experience of equanimity?
Um, I didn't really think of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's really interesting. Okay. When you use that practice, where do you use that practice in your life?
Uh, I have fallen out of a habit.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
I used
Uh-huh.
to, I went to this Vipassana thing for 10 days. And after that, I kept up the habit for a good year of meditating for an hour every morning and every night.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's way more than I do. Uh-huh.
Well, they say for every hour you meditate, you need half an hour less sleep. So,
And that's why you were doing it, so you wouldn't have to sleep so much?
no, but I mean, it
Oh,
offsets
good.
it, like at least,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I get it now. I get it now.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
you're not sacrificing 2 hours of the day because you don't have to sleep as much.
I see. Okay. So it isn't just that you didn't think of using that practice around money. You just aren't, you've fallen out of the habit of using that practice.
Yeah, and I didn't think at the time, I didn't think that this was a practice that would apply. It just didn't cross my
Ah,
mind.
okay. Can
It
you
didn't
see
it
that
didn't
it,
occur to me until you said it.
oh, okay. And what do you think about it? Can it be a practice that would apply?
Uh, yeah, now that we're talking about it, yes, it could.
Right. What I'm really interested in doing again is not like proselytizing or telling people, trying. I mean, be happy to teach practices, but I'd much rather. I mean, you've had this very positive, strong experience of Vipassana for 10 days. That is the experience with Vipassana, the great retreat. And you have that experience of meditating for 2 hours a day. So why in the world would I, try to suggest something or impose something anyway, on you? So yeah,
Oh,
it's
well, if
really
you have
good.
other ideas, I would like to hear them.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. I want to
Mhm.
explore just for a minute doing Vipassana meditation, Vipassana style meditation, which I only know secondhand, and I know is about observing what's going on in the body by moving through the body. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I don't just believe, I experience that feelings come up in different parts of the body. We want to observe the feelings that are coming up. And money is a great source of feelings. So there you are. You can picture yourself in Vipassana. If you think about the last time that you were feeling upset about money, Laura, just picking that, whatever moment. And then even now, you can probably remember what that felt like if you do even just a quick check-in. It doesn't have to be an hour. One thing I would suggest, since you're open to suggestion, is not using a practice that's going to mean that you have to interrupt your day for an hour, but using a very quick sort of check-in that is modeled on Vipassana. And so there you are. And right now, you don't need to say what the feelings are, but can you feel those feelings in your body from the last reversal that you had, financial reversal or financial difficulty?
Hmm.
Right. And so now, as you're observing the feelings, can you observe them without participating in them too much?
Um, Not really.
Okay. So the minute they arise, you sort of get engaged with them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then maybe Vipassana is not the right practice to use for the money stuff. Let's look at a different practice. How do you feel about journaling?
Oh, I love it.
Okay. How would it feel to journal when you have money difficulties, or how would it have felt at that time?
Um, yeah, that's a good way to process things.
Okay. What I'm looking for is something where you can put it outside you.
Hmm.
So putting it
Yeah,
on the page, on the screen. And
journaling does that. Yep.
okay, so journaling does do that for you. I think we're all wired in different ways and different things work for us. Right. And so I'm talking about like stream of consciousness. I mean, you're a writer. So I'm talking about just really doing a dump, not something you even have to show to anybody, but to get the feelings out on the screen. I'm assuming it would be a screen, but it might be handwriting.
Hmm.
Um, Once you can create distance, I hesitate to say separate from the feelings. Once you can create some distance from the feelings of upset or whatever they are, fear, dread. I'm just talking about some of my own feelings that come up. So I posted about that um, recently, that I lost 15% of my income last week. And I definitely had to use the practices I'm talking about. I didn't journal, but I did do a self observation practice so that I could notice that I am a person, I'm a human being, I'm a divine being having feelings. I am not my feelings. Um, or I could have gotten pretty freaked out about what had happened with me. Um, I'm wondering if you want to add anything or question anything that I'm saying. Does it sound too easy, for example? I don't want to be glib or superficial at all.
No, it definitely doesn't sound like that. I kind of had to switch orientation from thinking like I'm I'm going to change and I'm going to become this person who is equanimous to, to having a practice where you can get into that state whenever you need
Oh,
to. And it's something that you do have to keep getting into.
that's exactly right. And I didn't even think about that. Right. How do we become an equanimous person is by cultivating equanimity. I do feel like you already have it in you. I do feel like that's part of your package
Mm.
as a spiritual being, as a larger being.
But it's something that you have to keep returning to.
Very much so. Because doesn't your mind keep returning to the agony, to the
Mm-hmm.
fear, to the pain, to the difficulty that's pulling us? Isn't that always pulling our consciousness if we're having a hard time with money, if we're having
Mm-hmm.
any kind of reversal with money? So, yeah, absolutely. It's like I always think of it, and I'm 64 years old, as picking up the needle on the record player from one song to putting it on the other, right? If you can let the record just turn and it'll just keep turning and the needle will keep moving and finally it'll stop and go. But if you pick it up and put it where you want it, that's what I'm talking about. That's what exactly what you just described doing is returning
Mm-hmm.
your mind to that. And I think you would notice yourself becoming equanimous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I feel like that's complete. Do you have any more questions or anything?
No, this has been very helpful.
Thank you very much. Kat, do you feel ready to coach?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's great. Okay, hi. It looks like you switched to your phone, maybe.
Yes, I'm, yeah.
Okay, it's nice to see you. Would you like to ask questions or talk at all about your
Oh,
situation?
sure.
Thank you.
Let's see. About 30 years ago, we took our company public and we had abundance of money. And then about 15 years ago, my husband started another company and it caused us to lose most of it. I didn't know that until I was 9 months in house isolation. And he was the next month after I got out of isolation, he had bladder cancer and had his bladder removed. So we owned homes in Alaska and California and Colorado, sold California. And I designed and built the house in Alaska and the house in Colorado. I just sold this fall because I was down to $16 in my checking account.
Oh, wow.
And I can report that the experience of that dimension of reversal uh,
Mm,
was a financial pressure that was just, it made me appreciate um, the pressure even to breathe in my body. And there were many nights when it was hard to go to sleep because I was trying to figure out a way through it. I have a spiritual practice called inner resonance technology, which I absolutely credit with me being able to have my emotions while all of this contraction was happening. And so my question now is, uh, how might I recover to that same sense of freedom and
mm,
joy and ease, knowing that the next dimension of financial abundance is up to me? For 5 years, I've been in a coaching program to produce online events. Specifically, I'm a climate coach. There
mm.
are many crises that are going on right now, and a lot of people are just trying to survive. And so, my question is, how can I have that magnetic attraction where climate doesn't become this doom and gloom, Rather, it's something that can be fun and done. So that's the transition I'm in currently.
Okay, wonderful. And again, like I was saying in the introduction, we don't want to do a bypass around the gloom maybe not, but a sense of doom I think is fairly rational around climate. I've been a climate activist for quite a while, and it's pretty grim. It's pretty scary. And one of the first things I was interested in was how to help people process the enormity of their feelings and the amount of resistance that most people I think are in, and suppression of awareness about what's going on with climate, I think has to be spoken to. And if we can find vehicles, and I don't know if this is part of your work, but creating vehicles for people to express and work with the feelings, then of course, as Joanna Macy has discovered, there's a turning, there's a way in which our heart is open and we can contribute in a positive way to climate action. That's a little different from just like snapping our fingers and reversing the trajectory. But that's very specific to climate. I think what I'm hearing in your money story is a lot of wounding, from having a real high to then, I mean, not only losing your money, but your husband being so ill, and losing your homes, even though you consciously chose to sell them. Like you say, you were down to $16 in your checking account.
Yeah.
How much of your identity was wrapped up in the high, let's say?
Probably less so than my husband. He used to hang out with a very rarefied group of billionaires and politicians and
Okay.
things.
Well, so then let me ask, how much of your identity was wrapped up in your husband?
Well, many of my friends had counseled me to leave. And that is contrary to my belief. When I made a promise to marry him,
Yeah.
my word, that's my integrity.
Oh no, I'm not talking about that. I mean, like what you could maybe see now was a false sense of self that came out of your attachment to what he had achieved, to his money, to his friends, to the world that you were living in, thanks to him.
I don't think very much of it. He had a very different life. Mine was about earth and conservation and wilderness and personal growth. He was involved with none of that. So I would say that it was not connected in that way.
Well, so then this is like an opening and an opportunity to create an identity, or I don't know. I mean, my spiritual process, my practice actually leads me to a place of no identity, which I think is just fine, because any identity that I could actually conceive of is probably too small for who I actually am. And when I say that about each of you. So I don't know how much you want an identity, but you can create the identity that makes sense to you. When you talk about, it's internal resonance technologies, is that what you called it?
Inner resonance
technologies. Can you describe that practice just a little bit?
Sure. It's done in about 15, 20 minutes. It's asking a set of allowances. It's 7 steps that really allow me to be grounded and connected with earth, bring that energy and emotions up through my body, bring the past, present, and future in alignment. It's a beautiful way of really being calm and expansive and actively listening. And Dr. Bruce Lipton's work is kind of basic to it.
Sure.
Mark Edwardson is the one who taught it to me. So for a year, we were in conversation while I was going through this, which was wonderful. And then for a long time, I did it on Facebook Live, so that while I was doing it, any of my friends could also benefit from it.
Wow. Okay. So you definitely have a connection to something larger than you, like we were talking about in the very beginning of the session. And I think I'm going to go back and repeat that, just for the benefit of the people who arrived after you and I finished coaching. So you don't need my advice about that, about how to establish the bigger identity. You want to develop this attractive force to your work as a climate coach, creating events. You want people, this is going to be your new business, or this is already your new business. I don't usually speak in the future. Like if I set an intention, it's already happening. This is what I'm doing. Okay. And you have, one thing I know you have, because we're connected on LinkedIn, is you have an enormous network. I think.
Yeah.
I think you have a beautiful network. And so what, in a way, you're talking about your brand. And I have great respect for brand because the person I worked with, Kurt Bartolich, has such a deep understanding of brand and conveyed that to me. It's not like color choices. It's a lot like your soul and how your soul expresses in your business. And of course, it's also, there's accounting and marketing, and we have to make sure that the business is stable. But that's what we're trying to do, is accomplish something in this world. Well, so one thing is, why not, what's in the way of just deciding that every word out of your mouth about climate is attractive and interesting and compelling and moves people forward and engaging? When I say that, what comes up for you?
A history of doing these 3-day events where I have missed the mark in, I deliver a really powerful 3-day experience, but insufficient to attract a longer term relationship. Also, I have a free mindset. For 16 years, I've organized TEDx Vail. Most events are for free. And I didn't need to make money for decades. And so now that shift needs to really, it needs to kick in.
Right. Okay, great. So those are two really, really great things. And I think in some ways they're related. They're related through the self-other relationship. How do you see yourself? And I always go back to, how am I seeing myself in a way that's limiting me? I think revising your idea of yourself is a good thing to do so that you're much more expansive. For me, you are that. Just like I am, when I say I'm not that, I'm not the small t, that with a small t. I am actually one with the universe, with God, with spirit. And that empowers me to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish in this world, because fear comes up all the time. And fear is a way of saying, oh, I'm getting too big. I'm getting too special. I'm getting too magnetic, too attractive. That's what I think fear is. Is safety, is the voice of safety, but it's mistaken. It's trying to keep us safe by keeping us small. So you can't do that anymore. Right? You are this like very wise woman, and you really have a history. You have the chops, as we say. You have a history that you can point to, an enormous long history of events that you've done and relationships that you've built and knowledge that you have around climate. I do think you have to work on the money wound, about giving things away for free, because we can't, this event is free. I do love giving things away for free. And there's lots of times that I can't give away things for free, or I won't have anything to live on, and then I will just die. And, death is not the end, but it's something we might want to avoid prematurely. So my favorite recommendation for healing a money wound is a book called Money Magic by my mentor, whose name is Deborah Price. And it's a workbook, and it helps you work through money wounds. Deborah certified me as a money coach to work with people one-on-one to heal their relationship with money. Notice I'm not saying I guarantee people will have more money. That's less and less of a concern to me. When we heal our relationship with money, money flows into our lives. We build the relationships we need, and relationships and money always go together for me. I come from a social justice, social change, organizing background as an activist. And so I'm also a fundraising consultant. All the work I know to do is to humbly ask a person for money, to humbly say, I'm doing this work, I want you to support it. This is the core on building those relationships, but it's not an empty ask. It's an ask to step into a relationship and to step into stakeholdership. And I'm very much talking about the kind of climate change work you want to do, Kat. I think you're going to have to start, and this is the other thing about giving the work away too cheap, is the ask that you've been making of other people has been too small. So when you do a 3-day event and everybody's all excited and wonderful, and then what you're saying is there's no outcome after that, there's no action. I think you have to start setting standards for people, setting some boundaries and saying, I will actually not let you into this event unless I know what it's going to do in your life, and I know what you're going to do with it, and I know what difference you plan to make on it with it. I do that, and I admit that I don't have gigantic mailing lists. I don't have a gigantic number of people that I work with, but the people I do work with make a difference. They make the changes that they want to make. And I'm also on their butts all the time to do so as a coach. But that's only my part of it. The other part of it is they step up. They hold a high expectation for themselves. And I think that's where you have, metaphorically, been giving it away too cheap. And that's also how you see yourself. Like, do you have the right to really insist with people that their caring manifest into something? I think you have the right. I think you have every right.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, great.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to just really briefly present the thing that I presented earlier and just reemphasize it. So equanimity is not caring about money. We need money, or we wouldn't be on this call. We often have negative feelings about money. We worry about money, and we may have a whole lot of money, like what Kat was just talking about, and we may have very, very little money suddenly. And I think it's God's teaching when we get both of those experiences in a lifetime. It sort of reminds me of when my house burned down. My apartment building burned basically to the ground. And I thought, and forgive the profanity, I said, God thinks I'm a badass. God thinks I can take this. God thinks I can handle this. And it's true. I really felt tested. And there's a blog post on the Raising Clarity blog called Reversals, where I talk about that experience. So this is a process. Cultivating equanimity, as you may have heard with Laura, is not suddenly becoming like a halo descending from heaven. She didn't say that, this is me. And then we're suddenly equanimous. Boom, we're equanimous. No, it's cultivating a reflex of returning to equanimity, which is really cultivating a reflex of observing our own emotions around money, and thereby creating a little distance between ourselves and the feelings. We are not our feelings. We are also not the money that we have. It doesn't matter what money we have. We're not that. We're so much more than that. So those things are really important. There's no spiritual bypass here. My personal practice is a non-dual practice, Advaita practice of remembering that I am not that. I am that, the greater whole. That's my personal practice. But like I said, I'm not interested in proselytizing. I think identifying with money is the biggest obstacle, and identifying with our feelings and identifying with anything small, what we have, for example, the material things we have, rather than the larger, could be spiritual reality. If that doesn't work for you, the larger humanity, that we are part of this world. We're a citizen of the earth, a citizen of the world, and a part of the earth, can also work, just as we remember that we're much, much bigger than anything small like money. The other thing is that money is not owned by anyone. And success with money is not owned by anyone. We have a lot of images of who is successful with money, and they're not very attractive to a lot of us. We don't want to look like those people. I I completely think we can define how we are successful with money, or simply how we relate to money as a friendly and a kind of fluid relationship. Because anything we can do that will restore our flow, our sense of ourselves as in process, our sense of ourselves as one with the universe, our sense of ourselves as creative, as embodying the creative force, dynamic, those are the energies of money as I understand them, and as was written about in Money Magic by Deborah Price. And that's how I coach, that the magician is, and the magician in the tarot deck is connected to heaven and earth. There's a flow. The magician's symbol is the infinity loop. So we're always letting go of money and we're always receiving money. Giving money, charity is a very important part of a number of religions for a very good reason. And it's a selfish reason as much as a selfless reason. Giving away money in a wise way also helps us return to that flow. It's also creative. It's part of that magicianship with money where we're letting go, we're receiving, and we're letting go. And I find that if I have a feeling of stuckness in my money flow, that I sometimes need to give money. That's very important. I want to quote a Sufi teacher, a Muslim teacher. I want to offer you this quote. I want to make sure to give this. And this is in a blog post I wrote that you can find on the Raising Clarity blog. If you look up the word portion, the title of the blog is really Accept Your Portion. And the teaching is words of treatment for a financial difficulty. And what Sidi al-Jamal says to say is, in the name of Allah, upon myself and my money and my religion, O Allah, make me satisfied with what you decree and bless me in what you have apportioned to me, so that I am not in love with what you have withheld, nor do I resist what you have given. This is said upon leaving the house. And you can find that prayer in that blog post. I think a lot of us on this call, a lot of people who pay attention to Raising Clarity already understand about not coveting what God has withheld, or if we say the universe, or we say our higher self. I believe there isn't anything to me except God, really. There isn't, this is not me. I'm really just trying to be God shining through. The sense that God has withheld something from us, we might think, okay, that's for my blessing. I needed that. And I think when we appreciate our financial reversals, really appreciate them and the teaching, and we dive into that teaching, we can accept that. But to not resist what God has given us, that's really a hard one for a lot of us. We have been given so much. We really have each been given so much. Allowing that, allowing God or the universe or us to give to ourselves, remembering, oh my gosh, I am actually noticing where, and you can feel it in your body. So both people who have coached have talked about the feeling in the body of just feelings about money. I want to say that a lot of these feelings are resistance. They're resistance to feeling. And if we open up and soften up, the feelings come up, and then we also become more expansive. And we accept what has been given to us. We notice what has been given to us, because weirdly enough, we are often resisting the gifts that are being given to us. So I would say, where are you also resisting the gifts that are being given to you? And that includes money, includes financial success, includes relationships and alliances that would allow you to manifest your work in the world. I want to invite anyone else who's on the call to coach with me for the last few minutes of the time.
So the questions that I'm grappling with now are not for myself personally, but sort of thinking about a larger collective. I'm on a board of an organization that grants money, and we don't have, unlimited resources, but there seems to be a lot of new need. And so we're trying to make nimble decisions about resources as well as build relationships so that we can get more money to move to where it's needed. And so, but I'm also grappling with senses of overwhelm, right? So like no matter what we do, it's like we can't hold the tide. And trying to figure out how to stay grounded and also connected.
Mm. Okay. So just as identity with money, our personal identity it can be limiting and wrapped up in money, and we've got to free ourselves from that, whether from journaling or grounding, meditation, observing feelings. The organization has an identity.
Mm,
I would start right there. But the point is, no matter how much you have, I don't care if you're the Ford Foundation, it's never enough,
right.
right? If that's how we're approaching it, which is no matter how much money we have to be in partnership. We have to see ourselves as a piece of a whole and not the whole. Staying in that place and understanding how precious the money is that you do have, right? It's very important that you do have some and that you allocate it wisely. I do know people who have inherited wealth with sudden wealth, made a huge amount of money, and they just give it all away.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way to handle it. I would like people who are that ethical already to be the ones making financial decisions. So I would probably say, wait, don't do that. Think carefully. Make the difficult decisions. There's no easy answer. But those are the beginning places I would start. It's not, my advice is not cut your grants in half so you can make twice as many. I'm never a more is better person.
Mm-hmm.
Where can generosity be inspired? Where in the landscape can generosity be inspired? Is there a way to use relationships to inspire more generosity in those relationships? I think people are very generous by nature.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we always know where to put our energy, where to put that generosity. Whom do we trust? There's so much worry about, are they a trustworthy organization? If you've got your list of grantees, you can publish and say, we believe these grantees are doing amazing work. We are publishing their names because we invite you to match our grant, for example, to them. And driving, it's like a little mini crowdfunding campaign for each of them. Maybe that's, I mean, all I'm talking about is like a social media post saying, here's who we're giving to, here's their donation page, hallelujah. Alhamdulillah, we would love you to please consider a gift. Thoughts, ideas you're having in response to this?
Yeah, I think that it's important to be incredibly public about the generosity. And I think that I really take what you're saying about leading and leading with trust. So saying that, we've done the work to build trust with this organization and we think that they're going to be good stewards of these resources. I think I'm also just very aware of having to move at a different pace now, and not necessarily having set that pace, and also just knowing that there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainties.
What I'm thinking is clarity, extreme clarity about what you're doing and how to make it simple, but just an identity as a collective.
Yeah.
No, right. You want to make it easier on people to get the money, not harder.
And I think just to be very specific, like we're setting up some calls with leaders to just sort of say, what are you seeing? What are your needs right now? How are those changed? Right? Because knowing just having generalized anxiety isn't necessarily helpful.
No.
And so, getting down to brass tacks and saying like, what beyond money could we help with too? Because that's like if there's somebody in our network that they would want to be in a relationship, then we could leverage that too. But I think that I'm thinking about how to structure those meetings so that they are amongst peers, or like I know that there's always going to be a power differential between funder and grantee, but how to structure it in a way that is at least a little bit more leveling.
I might not want to do one-on-one. First of all, that could be long. I might want to do like a fishbowl. Does that make sense? So you put the grantees in the middle and you guys just listen. You sit on the outside and you just listen.
Okay.
I think they will feel more powerful and be able to speak truth more clearly, and it will then, and they also might enjoy meeting each other. On the other hand, if you can come up with 3 things that you could do, may just be one thing besides money. It may be relationships.
Yeah.
We have, here are the relationships. Here's kind of the universe. You could even map your own relationships and say, we're willing to facilitate an introduction for each of our grantees to one other person, or 2 or 3 in our network. Maybe that might work, but to prime the pump a bit, because I'm not used to thinking, if I'm an activist, I'm not used to thinking, well, what else can you do for me? I don't know. I mean, it's an honor to receive the grant, but what else can you do? I don't know. Okay.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much.